Oh man, we are finally here, Generation 6. Oh, this is where the TCG truly went off the rails for a lot of people, but that doesn't happen for at least a reasonable bit in here. Hey guys, this is Gamer Cow, welcome to another Pokemon Trading Card Game History video. Yeah, Generation 6 starting off here, and we do have the new sort of mechanic to this as well. Exes are sticking around, but they have evolved. We have Mega Evolutions in here as well. Now, we will get to that as we go. Generation 6 is a very weird time, I think, as far as the TCG goes, because, like I said, it doesn't exactly have a quote-unquote new idea to it. Mega Evolutions were really just treated as an extension of the EX stuff, so you know, there is that, but Generation 6 is also where regular Pokemon really started becoming EXs as well. We could get chase cards for, like, awesome stuff as well, you know. Clearly, at the beginning, it's got to be the Kanto starters and stuff that get all the treatment, but we get some really good ones as we go along. Some really fun EXs to get. Also, there are a couple of rule changes as we go here as well. Number one, Pokemon Catcher. That has been errated now, so it's on a coin flip. And as it always should have been really, we no longer have Gust of Wind in format. Thank God for that. A couple of decks will still play it, and you know, there is that, but we'll get a much more elegant solution to that next set, which has continued to this very day, actually. So it's much nicer, and we'll get to that as we do. Number two, opening like turns of play and stuff here. When setting up, we have to flip the coin first, and then whoever wins the coin toss gets to choose who goes first. That aspect actually didn't exist in the TCG until Generation 6. It's kind of ridiculous that you didn't get to choose whether you went first or second. If you won the coin toss, you just had to go first. But now you do, so you might wonder, why would you even want to go second? That's a disadvantage in everything, right? Well, rule change number 3, the player who goes first cannot attack anymore. So that means that you cannot donk if you go first. That's what it was designed to stop, right? To stop stuff like Hammerhead or Frost Spear or any other ridiculous stuff like that from getting, you know, turn 1 kills. Especially Frost Spear was kind of egregious for that, right? Because we had Kyurem with Deoxys and Hypnotoxic Laser Verbank stuff. It was possible to hit maybe 80 damage on turn 1, possibly even higher. Silver Bangle could do more against the Exes, but you know, 170 HP, kind of hard to kill. Yeah, so that's a big deal. And then the other minor one is for mulligans. You do not take mulligans one at a time anymore. You count how many times the opponent had to shuffle up, and then you draw equal to as many as you choose up to that number. So like, if the opponent mulligans 3 times, you don't draw 1 and then play, then draw, then play. You wait until after they have a Pokemon, and then you draw up to 3 cards at the end. You can still play another basic down if you draw 1, but yeah. So that's the housekeeping stuff out of the way. What about the set itself here? Well, there's a lot of colourful stuff here, and we have a new type introduced as well in the Fairy type. We'll get into that in just a sec. There are promos to go with here as well, but really the only meaningful ones are 60 HP versions of Fennekin and Froakie, because they're 50 HP in the set itself. And there's a Garchomp EX, but it's honestly really bad. But it does highlight, because I don't think there's a Dragon type in the main set, so it's worth bringing this out just to highlight now. Dragon types are no longer weak to Dragon, they are weak to Fairy. This is going to be huge for Druddigon in the next set, but it means that Dragon types no longer hit themselves for weakness. Except, the ones that are already in format still do. So, this Garchomp could hit Black Kyurem for weakness, but Black Kyurem could not hit it back. Just a point to note, that is going to be the thing for the next, like, 2 generations, basically. For Dragon types, they're going to be weak to Fairy now. Until Fairy goes away, but, you know, we'll get to that way down in the future. So, what is the deal with the Fairy type? Well, obviously they have their own energy at this point now, which means if we want to play a Fairy deck, we can't play Heart Gold Soul Silver energy. I know, very sad, but it's worth it because these guys are really cool. So, yeah, they have their own type of energy, and they have, collectively, a Metal Weakness and a Dark Resistance. So Gen 5 was dominated for quite a long time by Dart decks, and those Dart decks are still really powerful. We have 2 very good Dart Pokemon in this set. No, the same Pokemon, but one EX, etc. We have 2 really good ones, so Dark is still going to be incredibly powerful moving forward. And I guess instead of Dragon being the target here, like you would expect from Fairy, they went after Dark because Dark is kind of gone uncontested really in Gen 5. Like, so much of Gen 5 was fighting type because it hits Dark type for weakness, right? But now these guys are fighting resistance, so it makes it even tougher on the weakness end. So yeah, collectively we are going to see this basically throughout most of the game's history until Gen 8 messes everything up, but even then Pokemon designated as Fairy type are going to be weak to Metal, so yeah, that's kind of neat. And pretty much they came out swinging, but we'll get to that as we go down. Gen 6's base set has a ton of busted cards in here though. We have, in terms of the trainer cards, are just absolutely insane. Almost all of these are really powerful in their own right. Some of them don't see as much play as others, but they are still all kind of incredible, with the exception of Cassius over here. Cassius is Mr. Fuji, I think, is basically the best way of putting this. You shuffle one of your Pokemon and all cards attached to it into your deck. This can shuffle your active back, which Mr. Fuji could not do, but Mr. Fuji, all the way back in the Fossil set, was an item card, because supporters didn't exist yet. So, yeah, it's very weird, and you've got to get the Pokemon out again, which is the main thing that kind of stops it being super good, but it's not the worst thing I've ever seen, and honestly, if you could come up with some cookie deck that could work with this, I'm sure it'd be fine. The only problem is, obviously, shuffling all the energy back could be kind of annoying as well. Most of the good cards of this type put the stuff back into hand, so yeah. Evo Soda is a pretty awesome card, so this does not let you break evolution rules. It specifically says that down the bottom. You can't use this during your first turn or on a Pokemon that was put into play this turn. Put into play includes being evolved, right? Because you're putting the evolution card into play. So you can't go evolve from hand to stage 1 and then Evo Soda to stage 2. That is not how this works. But you can search your deck for any Pokemon that evolves and just evolve it. So yeah, you don't bypass like Rare Candy does, but you do really like this in Stage 1 decks especially. But any deck that, say, you can't level ball search or evolution would be very nice, you know, with this as well. And it actually can get Mega Evolutions as well if you do play that sort of thing. There'll be a catch to that, but we'll get to that when we talk about the Megas. Fairy Garden is an absolutely insane stadium. We're going to start seeing some really good Stadium War stuff potentially here. Each of Pokemon that has any Fairy energy attached to it, both yours and the opponent's, has no retreat cost. So this works with Rainbows and Prisms, so there's a whole Fairy box thing that we can do here. Some non-Fairy decks will actually play this too. I've seen Plasma variants with this, because they play all the Rainbow stuff. But yeah, it's Darkrai, but on a stadium. Yes, you can bounce that stadium, so you probably do need to play quite a few of these, but it's just really strong to be able to go, yeah, I just don't have a retreat cost now. You know, who needs to play Floatstone if you can play this, right? Makes it less vulnerable to Tool Scrapper, I guess, so yeah. Great Ball gets a reprint in here, so what, I suppose. Hard Charm is Eviolite, but for any Pokemon. Any damage done to the Pokemon this is attached to is reduced by 20. So Eviolite, obviously completely outclassed now. I don't even think in Tool Drop you would play Eviolite, because I don't think you can fit 4 of this and 4 Eviolite in the deck, so, or any number really. So yeah, just a global 20 reduction. Very nice to prevent some like 2-shots and stuff. EXs, of course, are really we're fine with Eviolite anyway, but non-EX stuff, some evolution cards could take advantage of this as well. So it's really quite nice. Max Revive puts any Pokemon from your discard pile on top of the deck, so not quite as good as like Pokemon Rescue, but if you can draw into it afterwards with like a Pokepower or something, or ability as they are now for ages, you know, draw into it with like Electrode or the Delphoxes in this set, spoilers I guess, it could be pretty strong. Muscle Band is absolutely insane, and I can't believe they printed this as is. The attacks of the Pokemon this card is attached to do 20 more damage to the opponent's active. regardless of whatever, like before weakness and resistance. So 40 on weakness, what the hell. Yeah, this is a global plus 20. They just printed Silver Bangle 2 sets ago, like half a year ago from this, which is 30 but only 2 EXs on non-EXs. Now the EXs get a plus 20 as well. What on earth were they thinking with this? This of course combines very well with Hypnotoxic Laser and Verbank, and you can do some very dumb stuff with this. And yeah, it massively increases the power level of this error. Tool removal actually kind of matters a bit now, but the thing is, this, unlike Hard Charm, this kind of just does its thing already. So like, if you put this down, you are probably getting an extra KO that you might not have gotten otherwise. So yeah, anyone remember Expert Belt? This is Expert Belt without the HP thing, but without taking an extra prize as well. Busted as hell. Professor Sycamore is in here. This is like unofficial rule number 4. Actually is official because they did put the thing out. You are not allowed to play Sycamore and Juniper in the same deck. You must choose one or the other. You can't even mix them. It's not 4 of up to 4 of whatever. You cannot play both cards in the set, even if you only play one of each. Can't do it. So yeah, if you like Sycamore more than Juniper, go for it. There is a full art that comes out at the end of the era, so there is that, I suppose. Professor's Letter is literally double energy search. Most broken energy search card we have ever had. Search your deck for up to 2 basic energy, put them into hand. Almost every deck will want to play this, and it's usually only a one-off, but remember this is a Skylar target, and so suddenly your Skylar becomes double energy search for the turn. Absolutely insane. And decks like Blastoise Black Kyurem and even Raybor absolutely adore this because you can search for both types of energy that you need. Insane card. Not every deck can play it because, you know, Plasma decks and stuff that only use special energy can't use this thing, but it's incredible. Absolutely incredible. Red card is the most disgusting thing I have ever read. Okay, not quite, but it's very close. The opponent shuffles their hand into their deck and draws 4 cards. As an item. I shouldn't have to tell you how absolutely dumb this is. Judge is a very powerful card that is the massive disruption play even to this day that most decks in the current format are playing like 3 or 4 Judge or something. And yeah, it should come as no surprise that a Judge on an item, even if it's one-sided, is like, that's ridiculous. We do have N, which does stifle this card a little bit because we're already doing like a shuffle thing from that. But yeah, there's almost no reason to like not at least consider this card if you have a deck that can like play a little bit lower to the ground, you know? A lot of basic style decks would love this. And Sableye, oh my god, Sableye is so annoying with this card. So yeah, really stupid thing. Roller Skates, simple enough. If you flip heads, you draw 3 cards. If you flip tails, it does nothing. It's a worse copy of Bill's Teleporter, but it is possible to see play in like super turbo decks in this era. I haven't built a deck with this yet in testing stuff, but it's very possible. Kind of annoying that this exists, but we have Bicycle as well. So like, this is the whole item based turbo draw thing getting started here. It's only going to get worse as we go, trust me. Shadow Circle is an interesting stadium card here. Any Pokemon that has a dark energy attached to it has no weakness. So unlike the Fairy Garden, this is a passive card, so it can get bounced before it does anything. But the dark Pokemon are incredibly strong, and that's why fighting types have been so good, right? I said that earlier, but it's still true. This will remove that and create like an extra step or an extra card that the opponent needs in order to take advantage of that. So yeah, decks really do need to playing stadium cards if they weren't before. It does compete with Verbank obviously, so that's a bit of an issue, but you know, it's worth it, at least as a one-off, so yeah, watch out for it. Shauna is a new supporter card that we have here. Shuffle, draw 5. I say new, this is like a reprint in spirit of Professor Oak's research from way back in the very first wave of supporters, actually, in Expedition. I think Fire Red Leaf Green also reprinted it as well, so we've had it for like Gen 3 too. But yeah, Shuffle, draw 5, it's fine. We have Colress at the moment that is typically better, but this is better in the early game, and Colress can sometimes be a bit risky, so yeah, it's decent. You'll probably see it once or twice, but it's not my favorite card out there for sure. Super Potion is completely outclassed by Max Potion, but if you only can afford to discard one energy, this could be your option. Heal 60 from one of your Pokemon if you do discard an energy on that Pokemon. I believe, unlike Max Potion, you have to be able to discard to use this one. I don't think you can just heal 60 off of a Pokemon without being able to discard. So, yeah, there is that. But still pretty powerful if you... like 60 is a third of a Pokemon EX's HP right now. So it's not the worst out there. You will turn some 2-shots into 3-shots with this. I just think Max Potion is generally better, but you know, not every deck can play Max Potion, so yeah. And then last but not least in the trainer department, Team Flare Grunt is in here. This is a guaranteed Crushing Hammer, discard an energy attached to the opponent, but it's only on their active Pokemon, and it's on your supporter for the turn. This does make it a bit more balanced. It is still annoying that this exists in the first place, because it is guaranteed energy discard, and you can discard basics with this as well. But at the very least, it is not something that you can play alongside like a draw supporter, so you do have to build your deck with that in mind. And it is restricted to the active only. If the opponent starts building up their bench, which you can't capture as easily now, this does become a little bit weaker. So yeah, it has its place, but it's certainly not as oppressive as you would think. DC still gets reprinted here. This doesn't stop until Gen 8, I believe, so yeah, still get used to that. But also we have a reprint of Rainbow Energy here. Still don't like the Pokemon League stamps on these things, but who cares? There's a better version of Rainbow Energy that I like anyway. This card is cool to have back. So of course, now that we have a new type in Fairy, Rainbow Energy does provide Fairy Energy as well. So that now gives you, alongside Prism Energy, you now have 8 options for, say, Plasma decks or the Fairy Box deck that we'll get into. And you have 8 options now to have multi-energy in play. Like, you know, being able to transfer them around, being able to pay for any type of attack. It's pretty cool. EXes! We have 6 of them that get full arts and then the 2 megas in here as well. So let's go over the non-mega evolving ones first just to get them out of the way. Emolga EX, not exactly very good unfortunately. 110 HP, 0 retreat. So that part's nice, but the 110 HP on the 2 Prizer, pretty miserable. Energy Glide lets you search for a lightning energy and attach it to the Emolga, and then switch the Emolga to the bench. That'd be nice, but you can't use it going first. So yeah, that's kind of lame. And then Electron Crush isn't even a good payoff for this either. 1 lightning, double colorless to do 60, and you may discard an energy on this Pokemon to do 90 instead. That does KO the next EX that we're going to talk about in one shot because of weakness. But 3 energy on this thing, you gotta commit like a double colorless probably to make it like 2 energy, and then discard the lightning, and it's 110 HP. Again, cannot understate how bad that is for a 2 Prizer. The only 2 Prizer of that low HP that I would use is Victini, and then Mew EX I guess as well, but that's 120, so yeah. 0 retreat is nice. Everything else, really bad. Lightning weakness also isn't great because Yveltal EX is in this set and is absolutely busted out the ass. 170 HP, so this is very, very similar to Mewtwo actually. 170 HP, just like Mewtwo. 2 energy retreat, just like Mewtwo, but it is in Dark, so you can use Darkrai with this very easily. Lightning weakness, finding resistance, so Dark type decks now have a way of resisting the stuff that has typically killed them all the time. And both of its attacks are really, really strong. Evil Ball for 1 dark and 1 colorless energy does 20 plus 20 more damage for every energy that's attached to both active Pokemon. Yeah, they decided that Mewtwo wasn't powerful enough and printed Mewtwo with 20 extra damage. However, a couple of catches that go alongside this. You cannot power this for double colorless energy, and it also doesn't hit itself for weakness. So it's not entirely another Mewtwo situation, but this card sticks around for years and years and years and is incredibly powerful for almost its entire lifespan. it still saw play like 3 years later. It's absolutely absurd. Why Cyclone is a pretty big part of that though. For one dark and a double colorless, you do 90, and then you move any one energy from this Pokemon to one of your bench. Usually, it's going to be the double colorless that you move to another Yveltal on the bench. Remember, we have Darkrai as well, so if we keep the Dark Energy on, we can Zero Retreat out, and you just keep preserving your energy in play, going for the giant Evil Balls when you need to, and with all the damage mods and stuff that are around now, it's very easy to hit plus 50 damage on this thing as well, right? Laser Verbank plus Muscle Band is 50 extra damage, and suddenly you're hitting 170 damage for what really doesn't seem like you should be. I've killed Ray Exes with this, and, you know, Mewtwo's and the like, when they've only had one energy on them, and I've had like 4. It's absolutely stupid how quickly this ramps up. Also, it's Dark type, so Dark Patch, of course, is still in format as well. Sableye can still be used. The regular Yveltal is super good as well. We'll get to that later on. Just an absolute all-star in this set, and really insane how powerful it gets. Skarmory EX is also 170 HP. All the EXs are pretty frail in this set, to be honest, apart from the Mega Evolving ones. 170 HP Metal type. It's only got a 1 retreat, which is quite nice. The usual metal stuff here, fighting Fire Weak even, Psychic Resist. Joust is kind of neat. For double colorless it does 30, and then you discard all the tools on the opponent's active before you do damage, so you don't get hit by hard charms and stuff like that. That's kind of cool, I suppose. But its double colorless cost is a little too expensive, and doesn't gel with its Tailspin Pile Driver attack. I absolutely love this attack name. For 2 metal and a colorless you do 80, but if the opponent has any damage counters on them already, it does 40 more. So it's slightly better than Groudon EX's, whatever it was called. I forget exactly the attack name, but that one, if it was 2 damage counters on them, then you got to do the 120. This one only needs 1, and that's very easy to sort of poke around here and there. So yeah, we don't have anything that like Zigzagoon, Galarian Zigzagoon, that puts stuff out, but we do have some generation methods, we shall say, in here, and if you do anything like put damage counters on each of the opponent's Pokemon with an attack, it's going to be pretty strong. Any snipe damage too, which is quite nice, so you could play it with like Landorus or something and do it that way, or you could do the crazy and try and play it with Zonius EX, I suppose. 170 HP, 2 retreat, same usual bits there. Fairy type, so it's Metal, Weak, and Dark Resist, which is kind of nice. And then it's 2 attacks. Breakthrough for a Fairy double colorless does 60 and 30 to one of the opponent's bench. And then X-Blast for 2 Fairy and 2 colorless does 140, but you can't X-Blast during the next turn. You can Breakthrough, however, so that is kind of important. The unfortunate thing here is, like, its attacks are just really expensive and don't really hit the numbers either. If you have, like, Laser Verbank, then you're doing 170 with X-Blast, so you need a Muscle Band on top of that to KO the bulky EXs. That's kind of not amazing. And then Breakthrough itself is just not very powerful, right? I know it's double colorless instead of 2 color and a colorless, but that trade-off is 30 less damage than Darkrai. And Darkrai is already, like, it's good, but it's not something you're focusing on attacking with very much anymore. So yeah, to have this be that much weaker, kind of annoying. Of course, the Zonius itself does have some energy generation as well, so we can kind of pay for it, but it's a pain in the butt nonetheless. Let's start looking at the regular stuff here though, because we'll go over the Megas as we do that. Venusaur EX is just a stepping stone for Mega Venusaur, really. 180 HP is fine, 4 Retreat is gigantic, so Heavy Ball, Surge Ball, I guess that's something we haven't gotten to say yet today. 2 attacks, 1 Grass, double colorless to do 60 and also Poison, and then 2 Grass and 2 colorless to do 90, heal 30 from itself. Yeah, it's in Grass that doesn't have acceleration right now anyway, and it's just not powerful enough, so we don't really care too much about this, sadly, but it's okay because we have a Mega to go into as well. The Mega does not gel with the double colorless cost of the base form, which is really annoying, but yeah, we'll get there. So, to Mega Evolve, you evolve like you normally would, however, as soon as you do so, your turn ends. This has to be like the worst signature mechanic in any generation, because it is just absolutely asinine that you are forced to give up an entire turn just to put one of these in play. Mega Venusaur does have a very impressive 230 HP, which is higher than anything else that we've seen so far, and the Mega Evolutions do have higher HP than any other Pokemon we've seen to date, which makes sense, but that turn give up is absolutely backbreaking. What do you get for that though? It's, well, still 4 retreat, no resistance on this, so no water resistance is kind of annoying. For 3 grass and 1 colorless, your only attack, Crisis Vine, does 120 damage, but auto paralyzes and auto poisons as well. That's kind of cool, but how are you setting this up for one? You have to probably use Virizion, but then you'd have to Virizion EX like twice, and pay 2 energy on the Virizion to do that, and then give up a turn, and then get this, and once you've done that, you probably need Dusknoir in play as well, so you can keep them locked. And why are we just not playing Excelgor at this point? Right? Excelgor has the stipulation of also Paralyze and Poison. For double colorless, it only does 50, but yeah, you can copy that with Mew. It doesn't give up your turn, shuffles itself back into the deck, so it keeps the double colorless safe. And yeah, just why are we not just doing that? It's so much better. Like, I don't know what they were thinking with this, to be honest. But I mean, that can go with most of the megas that we see here. There are tool cards that come out later on that enable megas to not take up your turn when you Mega Evolve them, but that is not the case for a few sets yet. So yeah, and even then, these ones didn't get them until Generations, the very end of the era. I don't even remember if this card was legal when that came out. It's very sad. Beedrill doesn't get a good card, so we're not really worried about that. The Chestnut in this set is cute, but doesn't really do anything. For Retreat, 160 HP. We are starting to push up the boundaries just a tiny bit. Yeah, the tanky one is 160 in this round. Spiky Shield, if it's active and gets damaged by an attack, you put 3 damage counters on the attacking Pokemon, so that's kind of cute. Touchdown for 2 grass and 2 colorless does 90 and heal 20 from this Pokemon, so not even that impressive of an attack, to be honest. It's hard to power up, it's harder to like maintain it. 160 is not even that unreachable, and we've just talked about Yveltal. If Yveltal has 2 energy on it, it does, what, 60 plus 80, so it's almost killing this with just 2 energy. Yeah, no, it's completely garbage. Vivillon is funny, but not really very good here. It does 30 plus 30 for every type of basic energy that's on this Pokemon, so basically just a giant Ho-Oh that's on the stage 2, and the basics are really bad, so nobody cares. The Delphox is actually good, to be honest. We're starting to get to the point where, like, stage 2s and whatnot, hard to justify, but this one is kind of worth it. It combines like a lot of the best traits of a bunch of Pokemon that we've seen in recent times. So 140 HP, decent enough. It's 2 retreat, fair play I suppose. Mystical Fire lets you draw until you have 6 cards in your hand, once per turn. So it's got Magnezone Prime's ability, which is really powerful. And then Blaze Ball for 3 colorless energy does 50 plus 20 for every fire energy on this Pokemon. So it has Keldeo's attack alongside Magnezone's power. Now, if you remember back to 2013, Magnaball was the world's winning deck, so Magnezone Emboar. Delphox has a more stable, if less like one-hit KO-y attack than what Magnezone would have. And it doesn't even need to split the energy, which is kind of nice. So there's a pretty cool deck with Rayquaza as well, like Rayball with the Delphox in there to add a bit more consistency. And yeah, it's pretty good. Talonflame doesn't do much here, but it is a lightning weak fire type, so if you want type coverage, I guess there is that. One problem with this, just like the Altaria, there is no fire type Fletchling, because Fletchling itself is normal flying, right? So that might cause some issues for certain cards. I think Blacksmith in the next set wouldn't be able to attach to it, but yeah. It's got Judge on, or Red Card on an attack, but we have Red Cards, so why would we need that attack? And then Flare Blitz, 100 damage is pretty solid, but 2 fire, discard all fire on it. It's very similar to like Infernape from Gen 4, but we've had 2 generations of power creep from that. Flare Blitz needed to do more. Blastoise EX. 180 HP, free energy retreat, so a little bit lighter than the Venusaur, funnily enough, but still heavy ball searchable, so that's good because Blastoise itself is heavy ball searchable, so yay. Double colors to do 30. The opponent switches after you switch, so you switch Blastoise with one of your bench, and then the opponent switches, they're active as well. Kind of cute, does keep the energy preserved, I guess, which is nice, but that double colors cost doesn't synergize with the rest of its attack thing. Whatever. If you're playing this in Blastoise, I guess it doesn't matter, like as a Blastoise Mega Blastoise deck. Splash Bomb for free water energy does 120, but if you flip tails, you also do 30 to yourself. If I remember Hard Charm's wording correctly, it's any damage done by the opponent's attack. So, unfortunately, Hard Charm will not protect you from this. Eviolite would, but then Eviolite doesn't work on Mega Blastoise, which is what you're probably going into here. Mega Blastoise only has 220 HP, so it's a bit lighter than the Venusaur, but whatever. Still free energy to retreat, so still heavy ball searchable. And Hydro Bombard is actually kind of worth it. For free water energy, you do 120 damage and 30 to 2 of the opponent's bench Pokemon. If they don't have Mr. Mime in play, which, let's face it, a lot of decks aren't playing Mr. Mime at this point, this is effectively 180 damage for free energy on a 220 HP guy that is not discarding that energy, unlike Black Hero. There is a fun deck here with regular Blastoise and Dusknoir. Because you're effectively hitting 180 damage every turn, if you can get the setup, it's a lot to ask for, but if you can get the setup, you're actually able to do like EX KOing damage every single turn. It's kind of absurd actually, just how much that does. So yeah, it's a fun deck. Not competitive, but fun. And, you know, sometimes that's what we want to show off here as well. Greninja is 130 HP, so the frailest of all of the starters that we have here, but 2 pretty okay? Like, 1 very good trait and 1 pretty reasonable thing here. It's Grass Weak, just like Blastoise. It's 1 retreat, so yeah, I mean, Virizion Genesect maybe could be an issue, but also probably not. Because Mist Slash for 1 water does just 50 damage. Kinda miserable for a stage 2, to be honest. It's not affected by weakness resistance or any other effects. So it's like a Swift. But yeah, that's kind of pathetic. So like, why are we even talking about this? Well, Water Shuriken is really, really good. For 1 water energy discarded out of your hand, this ability puts 3 damage counters on one of the opponent's Pokemon. Yeah. It's pretty strong, alright. Being able to place 3 damage counters, it's a soft once per turn, so if you have enough Greninja in play and you have enough counters, like, have enough waters to put down, you could put 6 or even 9 damage on 1 Pokemon here. You can take prizes in the middle of the turn, which is really good. There's a lot of thinking you can do with it here. And in Plasma Freeze, there was a Kingdra that came out, which synergizes super well with this too. It only has 1 energy attack, so you don't have to pay that much for them. It has spread options on it because it Tri-Bullet, 30 damage to 3 of the opponent's Pokemon, so you can spread alongside the Greninja here. And it's got a big reload type attack too, in the Dragon Vortex I think it's called, where for like 1 colorless you do 20 for every lightning and water energy that you have in the discard, and then shuffle those back into the deck, so you can pull them out again. Absolutely awesome combo, by the way, and really, really nice card to have around. So, yeah, it's a surprisingly good deck, too. We are going to see that, because I had a lot of fun testing that. The Raichu in this set is actually really good. 90 HP, so lovable, searchable. 0 retreat, which is really good. And Circle Circuit is awesome. Double colorless energy, 20 times the number of your benched Pokemon. So, this is Cinccino from Black and White base, except it doesn't have a retreat cost, and it's a lightning type, so it actually hits for weakness here too. This is critical because it really dunks on Yveltal, and that's obviously very strong in the set where Yveltal is probably the strongest card out there. It does hurt that it gets 1 shot in return, but it's a 1 prizer that takes 1 energy, a DCE, and takes 2 prizes every time it gets a KO on Yveltals. The 0 retreat makes it a really good pivot too, and it's just all around a very solid card. Easily searchable as well. So yeah, very powerful. Voltorb is worth noting here, despite the stupid stamp on it, because even though it's got less HP than the other Voltorb, it has an ability that lets it potentially put 5 damage counters on the attacker if it gets KO'd whilst active. You gotta flip heads for it, but it's still better than the other Voltorb. If it gets stranded, then, you know, that's something for it. And Rollout does damage, which the other one might not. It's a colorless energy to do 10, so you play it at any deck, and it's fine. More stuff to talk about. This set is really good, so yeah, there's so much. Trevenant is absolutely stupid. Phantom, this attack would have been really good if we still had the ability to attack going first, but thankfully we don't. So yeah, Astonish is not that impressive, but Trevenant is absolutely dumb. 110 HP, free energy retreat, so heavy ball searchable, and Forest Curse. If it's the active, the opponent can't play items from their hand. It's Gothitelle on a stage 1. Why would you even do that? Its attack for 1 Psychic and double colorless does 60 and 20 to 2 of the opponent's bench, so not the most impressive thing out there, but it can come up. So yeah, there are decks that will be able to attack with it as well, but of course this just turns Gothitelle Excelgor into a stage 1 only deck now, so you could play Evo Sodas in that deck and it'd be really good. Don't have to play Red Candy anymore, and it's all sorts of barf. Yeah, the only thing that's saving this from being like absolutely dumb, like there's 2 things actually. The first is like it counters Night March later on, which is something that I'm happy enough with, because Night March is insane. And the second is that it's weak to Dark in a set where Yveltal is the best thing ever. Even if the opponent can't play items, if they can get just 2 energy on in Yveltal, it one-shots this without any energy equipped. So it is beatable with like the main deck there, but it is so miserable to like have that going around, because Yveltal decks aren't typically going to be able to fit a Virizion in as well, so they are vulnerable to the Excelgor stuff. Thankfully, Virizion itself is also a bit of a check to this, so yeah, it's super annoying, but it's not completely unbeatable. Just some decks aren't gonna like it whatsoever. Geist is a very interesting card. 100 HP, so unfortunately not lovable searchable, you have to Evo Soda this one, but 2 pretty solid attacks here. Eerie Voice for 1 Psychic puts 2 damage counters on each of the opponent's Pokemon, and Spirit Scream for 2 Psychic Energy makes both active Pokemon have 10 HP remaining. This is kind of like Raticate, except for the extra HP, does take 2 Psychic Energy annoyingly, but the other downside is that it also puts yourself at 10 HP, but let's face it, it's only 100 HP, it's going to get KO'd pretty easily. It's weak to Dark as well, so that doesn't help, but what it does do is with Hypnotoxic Laser, it one-shots any Pokemon in the game that's affected by, you know, conditions, basically, that isn't immune to effects of attack, which I think is everything right now. I don't think there's effect immunity in play, so you can get a one-shot and everything. This can trade favorably if you can keep the Psychic Energy going. There are some ways of doing that, like Experience Share maybe, but even just a spread attack, don't underestimate putting 2 damage counters on each of the opponent's Pokemon for 1 energy. That is actually really solid, and with Dusknoir, you can manipulate that damage as you need to. So yeah, kind of a hard card to play, but if you could manage it, it's a really solid deck. Deltrio is interesting enough. It's got 90 HP, so lovable, searchable, and its second attack is garbage, nobody cares, but its first attack is the same as Donphan Prime. 60 damage for 1 fighting, 10 to each of your bench Pokemon. If you have a Mr. Mime in play, you actually block that damage, because Mr. Mime blocks all bench damage, so that's neat. But it's just an efficient hitter. If you play Silver Bangle, this can one-shot Darkrai, which is pretty powerful, and Thundurus EX as well. So it's a pretty good like counter hitter in the metagame at the moment. You play this and you play Raichu, and you can hit all sides of the Dart deck, which is pretty good. And yeah, it's just solid enough damage, and very easily searchable. So yeah, Raichu, Deltrio, pretty solid deck in its own right. None of the other fighting types are really that impressive. I think the Rhyperior would have been funny if you had the ability to accelerate a ton of fighting energy to it, but yeah, no, it's also coin flippy, but we do have Victini, I guess. Problem is, like, why would you do that instead of Darmanitan? Because this is a stage 2 that flips for every fighting energy that's on it to only do 50. Darmanitan also did 50, but as a stage 1 for double colorless and like any energy. I don't know, it's kind of dumb. None of the Dark types are too good before we get to the legendaries here. The Inkay is very funny, because if it gets confused, you can evolve the Pokemon from the deck, which is very silly, but I don't think there's a self-confusion method we can use here. Malamar almost reads like it's busted as hell, until you remember, unfortunately, Victini says like coins that you flip. For one Dark Energy, Mental Trash flips 4 coins, and for every Tails, the opponent discards a card from their hand. The catch is that the opponent flips the coins, not you. So Victini cannot be used to reflip the results. It could still be kind of annoying, but the opponent does get to choose what they discard, so they probably can keep hold of the cards to keep playing the game. So yeah, a bit lame. Baby Yveltal. Man oh man, this card is absolutely awesome. 130 HP, 2 retreat. So pretty standard for the legendary stuff here. For 1 Dark Energy, Oblivion Wing does 30 and attaches a Dark Energy from your discard pile to one of your bench Pokemon. Oh boy, that is very solid. It doesn't have to go to a Dark Pokemon like Dark Patch, but essentially it is just extra Dark Patches that this deck can use that do damage as well, so you can potentially set up numbers for your other Yveltals as well. Darkness Blade does actually come up sometimes as well. For 2 Dark and the colorless, it does 100 damage, but if you flip Tails, you can't attack during the next turn. That's fine, because it's in a Dark deck, you've got Darkrai, so you'll be able to retreat out, and it's probably not an issue whatsoever. 100 damage on a 1-prizer, that's not bad for that sort of energy cost. And it's in Dark, so you're able to just keep the energy flowing as well. Neat. Once again, Bisharp gets a card. Once again, it's terrible, so whatever. Aegis Slash gets like 2 cards in here. They can stance change between each other, which is kind of neat. They keep all of their conditions, damage counters, and all of that. So you're supposed to use them for like different situations and whatnot here. But their attack is just too expensive and doesn't do enough, really. 2 metal and 2 colorless, 120 not affected by resistance. Does anything even have a metal resistance anymore? Lightning types don't, so I don't think that text even matters. And then King Shield does prevent all damage done next turn to this Pokemon, but you're not able to use King Shield consecutively unless you switch out. So you'd have to burn a switch card, it only does 50 damage for 4 energy, and it's just not worth it. If you could somehow set up 2 of them, maybe in this format you could do something, because Catcher's not played that often, but even then, Hypnotoxic Lasers, blah 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 blah, it's just stupid. Wigglytuff has an attack named Hocus Pocus. That is the only thing that it's good for, but it's hilarious, and so I'm bringing it up anyway. Let's talk about the fairy types that are actually good here. Aromatisse, 90 HP, 2 retreat, but Fairy Garden, so whatever. It has Fairy Transfer, so as often as you like during your turn, you may move a Fairy energy from one of your Pokemon to one of your others. That's right, this is a Stage 1 version of Klinklang, and it has just as many utility purposes as Klinklang did. It's also, as I said, lovable searchable, so it's a bit more consistent as well, which is really good. And yeah, just transfer the energy around, max potion as you need to, do damage with a variety of different attackers, because you have 2 different rainbow energies you can use now. Good stuff! Just don't put a prism energy even on it, because then you can't transfer it. The Slurpuff has Sweet Veil, which is also 90 HP by the way, so also lovable searchable if you want to play down that sort of route. Each of your Pokemon that has any fairy energy attached to it can't be affected by special conditions. So this is a 1-prizer version of Virizion EX. However, this one's not quite as useful. You can just play Virizion EX and not have to worry quite so much about the stuff there. It is fine if you want to just play like a small tech line of it, but I think it's going to thicken the deck too much actually, like playing the second card here just to have a 1-1, and if either get prized you don't have this effect. I don't know, I think Virizion X is just better, but it also gives up 2 prizes, so take your pick I suppose. The regular Zonius has 130 HP and 2 retreat, just like the Yveltal. It's fairy, of course, so weak to metal, resistant to dark, and it's got 2 relatively solid attacks here. The actual damage attack for 2 fairy and a colorless does 100, then you discard an energy attached to this Pokemon, so yeah, very similar sort of thing to the Zekrom and Reshiram sort of thing going on here, with one discarding, the other one, you know, maybe not attacking, I guess is a bit different, but whatever. Geomancy is the main attack this is used for. For 1 fairy energy, you choose 2 of your bench Pokemon. For each of those Pokemon, search your deck for a fairy energy and attach it to that Pokemon. So, if you only have 1 Pokemon on the bench, you can only get 1 energy. That is the potential disadvantage here. But it's accelerate 2 energy from deck to your field. That is absolutely absurd. And of course, with fairy types having fairy transfer, you're then able to move that energy next turn where you need it to be, and suddenly you've got a whole host of attackers available, and it's absolutely great. So yeah, really, really cool card. I do like the concept of this thing here. And that is basically it for the Pokemon, because the colorless types are all pretty terrible in here. There's a Swellow that has Repel on, or the opponent gets to choose what switches out, but you get to force their active to switch, I guess. Infernape level X's ability was never the best part about it, so whatever. And then the only other ones, even, like, there's Diggersby that's got Junk Hunt, but for double colorless energy on the stage 1. Not even levelable searchable, so yeah, it's obviously terrible. And then Furfrou is kind of cute, but a little bit too weak, I think, here. Levelable searchable at 90 HP, takes 20 less damage from attacks, but we already have a Bouffalon that kind of does that bit better. And for 3 colorless energy, it does 80 damage, but if you flip heads, it discards an energy on the opponent's active. There is an energy denial deck you can build with this, but 80 damage is just not that high. It has a real problem closing out stuff here. It takes 3 energy, so Yveltal gets a one-shot on this thing if they have 2 energy, and it's not even guaranteed. If it was guaranteed energy discard, maybe it'd have been too strong, but that would have been the only way I could see this seeing play. Not a very good card to end on, but I mean, colorless types are always a bit weird, right? Sometimes they're absolutely busted because, you know, too many special energies for them, and then other times they just don't do anything because they don't hit for weakness. That is the very long descriptor of X and Y. What a set this is, and I think if I have my way with this anyway, we're probably going to spend a couple of rounds in this, partly because it's a new block, so we have new rules and stuff to get used to, but mostly because there's just so many decks now that are enabled here. Whether it's because Catcher is no longer guaranteed, so some cards like Electrode from Plasma Freeze are now super playable, and that can offer different variety of deck stuff here, or it's just, you know, everything from top meta like Yveltal to and Fairy Box to like old favorites, you know, Parisian Genesect with tech stuff like Raichu in here. Garbodor obviously is still pretty playable in its own right if we really want to, but there's some evolution stuff in here that's very fun too. Greninja is really good, Delphox is really good, there's some interesting stuff you can do with Blastoise. Lots of really fun ideas to come out of this set, and so it might be worth just spending a little bit more time here and showcasing a bit more. So yeah, thank you very much for watching my discussion on this set, and until next time, we'll see you then. Bye-bye.